Someone once told me because I was a teacher, I was supposed to know everything. I told him that because I was a teacher, I knew how much I still had to learn. Bill Nye. How often are we told that we don't know enough? That we can't speak or have any opinions on a subject which doesn't concern us, or that we don't have a degree in? Believe it or not, many people hold this myopic view. On the flip side, there are those who constantly act as if they know everything and will never let others get a word out. Besides the obvious rudeness of this tendency, there lies an additional fact between the two dichotomies of silence versus obnoxion, the necessity for the knowledge of knowing nothing. Now, what does this mean exactly? I think this can be understood through two words: humility and persistence. Here are some ways in which we can become more metacognitively aware and find success in the tools which aid us in the pursuit of understanding. Number 1, make humility a habit. Let me begin by saying the type of humility I am talking about is not diffidence. I am not imploring a lack of self-respect or erasure of self-confidence. On the contrary, through humility, we can experience the purest and strongest form of confidence. When we acknowledge that we aren't the center of the universe and continue to grow, learning in a meek but steadfast way, there is ultimate power gained. When we are unapologetic in our convictions and knowledge, but also willing to accept that we may stand corrected at times, there is greater room for growth in mature conversations, an increased ability to listen, and an opportunity to form our own opinions with clarity. Now, what is humility? It can be seen in a variety of forms: choosing to not be conceited or puffed up in our own works, being teachable, and acknowledging our own weaknesses. In Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the moment when the Grinch realizes the cruel actions he's committed by stealing the Who's presents, his heart shrinks and his eyes grow sad. This humbling moment is palpable. However, when he makes the decision to change his ways, his joy is immense. Can we learn from this feeling? Yes. Not by replicating and feeling the ultimate shame he did, but instead being lowly of heart and transforming all our pains into benevolent motivation. How can we be more teachable? Is it through listening better, eliminating all inclinations to jump to conclusions about what the other person is going to say? Or could it be by seeking out understanding, whether that be through speaking to new people, reading articles and books, or simply going through your day, analyzing the intricacies of life? Alma 13:28-29 says, "Be led by the Holy Spirit, becoming humble, meek, submissive, patient, full of love and long-suffering, having the love of God always in your hearts." In order to make something a habit, one must have focus and dedication, especially when this new pattern of behavior is not particularly comfortable or favorable. However, this is not the case with humility, because it is inherently beneficial to us. It brings peace and allows us to have more fruitful relationships and softer discussions. Do not be discouraged if you mess up, because there is always room for improvement and always an opportunity to continue the race. That brings me to my next point. Number 2, don't end the race early. Imagine training for a marathon for months in which you dedicated time and effort into blood, sweat, and tears, even the pains of shin splints, all to give up in the last few meters of the race. Do we sometimes do this in our lives? Do we waste our potential because of a fear of not being the best or even doing well? This idea touches on the plaguing entrapment of comparison and the fear of failure. Using the notion that we know nothing, what can be done in this type of combat? Well, in the literal interpretation of this phrase, we can remind ourselves that we objectively know very little about the lives of others, so it would be nonsensical to compare our lesser moments to others' highlight reels. Additionally, we know nothing about what lies in the future, so why are we afraid to try when there is such a probability for success? I know that when I choose to not rely on my limited knowledge and tendencies of external judgments, and I instead depend on divine sources and have continual faith, there is a flood of peace and confidence in my life. Number 3, motivating stupidity. It is quite sad that our society has integrated such dehumanizing diction into the common everyday language. Words and phrases used with such a hurtful, targeted tone are often directed towards unfavorable situations, purposes of comedy, and even in casual name-calling. When subjected to these words, however, we must view them as opportunities rather than impossible obstacles. In the movie Meet the Robinsons, the story follows Lewis, who is trying to get back his invention and stop the main antagonist, Goob, from taking over the future with mind-controlling hats. Beneath Goob's villainous actions in response to his traumatic childhood experiences and feelings of exclusion lies vulnerability and potential. While having a vengeful villain arc due to missing a game-winning catch in baseball is not the moral of the story, the truth is that we have a choice to make when facing hardships. The notion of finding your own motivation is ever so apparent in the story. However, Lewis obviously makes the wiser, more moral route in using his talents for good. The truth is, we may often feel isolated when we're made fun of by people who know nothing about us, the talents we possess, and our intellectual capabilities. The choice we have, however, is in our hands. Will we continue with enough drive to complete our goals, or will we allow ourselves to be stopped by people who know nothing about us? No, we need to keep going. This movie represents the capabilities and intelligence, especially of young children. Lewis was only 12 and he made a myriad of inventions. Did you know that according to a study by Brown University, children exhibit more dynamic GABA associated with inhibitory processing? This allows kids to learn more items within a given period of time and makes learning more efficient in children than adults. This manifests how important gaining knowledge is, especially in adolescence. In reality, it's a necessity in all stages of life. Henry Ford said, "Anyone who stops learning is old, whether at 20 or 80. Anyone who keeps learning stays young." Learning is like exercise for your brain. It works out your mind and your ability to encode information into your long-term memory. I personally do not want to remain a numb blob all my life, mindlessly doom-scrolling at videos of fridge restocks. I don't want society to have a cumulative IQ of a carrot, and I don't believe it will come to that. However, there is a great need for a more linear aim towards growth, education, and critical thinking. If you truly lack knowledge or expertise in a specific field of study which piques your interest, go for it and just try. Use the opposition and stupidity of the world to your advantage and let it fuel you. So here's your TF challenge, today through forever. Look for more ways you can truly listen to what others are saying, find sources of truth, and rely on the faith that all of our difficulties can be remedied. Remember to always have a humble, persistent knowledge of your limitless potential to be great, despite our society.